feel lost, to be honest, even though everybody comes to me for direction. And as a best-selling author, that must sound very ironic. I get it. But actually in the research, it's known as the wounded healer. And Zerbrahal and Wright in the research have renowned stuff to share. They think that personal wounds, if you have them that is, they can strengthen therapeutic empathy and connection. But in my own case, I'm not so sure. If truth be told, I am lost because, well, I can't figure out where to go, exactly where to go in every aspect of my life. That's just now though. And if I look at one side of things, it's not a nice place to be. I was speaking actually with somebody recently about it, and they said, God, I couldn't be like that. I have to know where I'm going, what I'm doing, kind of thing. And I'm very much like that too. I like to know what's for dinner and what's not necessarily for dinner tomorrow, but what's happening generally, very much so actually, especially professionally. But I have this openness, this blankness at the moment, which it's like a blank page as such. And it's not that I can't fill it, but it's how do I choose the correct pencil or pen, biro, coloring pencil, whatever it is, to scribe the blank page with. And then of course the words or the pictures or graphs or tables or figures or whatever else that I scribe or write or draw with or draw as. So there's a variety, there's a couple of different layers to it for me. And it's very deeply personal. And I do feel some of, if not all of it, is because of the age I'm at. But I also feel it's because as I record, it's a few years now, believe it or not. I say believe it or not to myself really out loud, since the COVID-19 pandemic began. And the version of normal that people reported that they loved before the pandemic. I remember people and many saying, oh, how will things return after the pandemic? And what will life be like? What will everyday life be like? What will routines be like? Because we've fallen out of routines and so on. And then slowly but surely people realized nothing's coming back to what it was. Things are just different. And so they were. But then there was this latent kind of hope or longing for, oh yeah, but that part of things will come back. It just takes a little bit more time. You know, it just takes people to respond to messages or advertisements or habits to renew, money to come back into circulation, friendships to meet for coffee and so on. But even if other things start and began to come back into, shall we say, old style routine, the pre-COVID routine, the other things, the collective, the other fragments of life, the work, socialization, economics, wars in the world, and all the knock-on effects of all these things created a different cacophony and rhythm to life. And that was different. But then that somewhat became the new normal. And that somewhat became the new tune in which we found ourselves and find ourselves in right now. And so when that parallels with the person's life, whether you're male, in our case, or female, or whatever other gender, or religion, or culture, race, that has an impact, a huge impact on your individualization and where you are with regard to where you think you should be in your life at present. And mostly, I think that is propped up, and the foundation of that is just going back on your personal life, because it's your personal life ultimately that I look into. The reason I do things, the reason I get up in the morning, the reason I am around certain people, the reason I have friends by choice, let's say, the reason I have work by choice, the reason I take contracts by choice, the reason I mix with certain people, professionally or not. That all has to do with, at the end of the week, we'll say, or an end of a period of time. Again, you personally, me personally, how you feel or fill that particular period with regard to, say, your week, your month, your income, your salary, your wage. That all then feeds into your downtime, which is your personal time. And that becomes a reflective time in some part. And when that happens, when that occurs, be it at the end of the week, and we'll give that as an example. And right now, for me, yeah, I have downtime at the end of a week, a given week, regular week. And if I add all those weeks together, they become months, and months become seasons, and seasons become years. And so when all of that happens, there are certain times of, say, a year, definitely, Christmas being one, where reflection occurs. And obviously, if you look around, it ain't Christmas. But it's funny, I think when reflection becomes part of the downtime more regularly, it comes like something under the carpet. It begins to fester almost, if there's an uncomfortableness there personally. And you start getting either itchy or frustrated or angry or agitated in some way, anxious maybe. And look, we all have some sort of feeling like that at some stage. It's only human nature. We're very fluid human beings. We think we're set, but we ain't set. It doesn't work like that. There's nothing set in nature. Every time it has its season, every time has a time for everything. Nothing is permanent. Our minds, we project with regard to planning. We think that way, and that's cool. And that's a good thing to do. And in general, yeah, we can devise routines and we can come up with plans, and they will work. But there's external factors, of course, other people, decisions being made, money, and so on, that curtail those things. But when the foundation is your personal life, and within your personal life, the foundation has certain quirks, shall we say, or certain certain instances of unclarity and a void. That's when you start feeling lost. Now, I think it's dangerous to feel lost and to be leading people. I think it's very important for the leader to know where they're going. And if they don't know where they're going, people are going to follow them like sheep. And a lot of those people will get the feeling that the journey is too long and it's too windy. It's without plan, it's without direction. It'll be skewed, it'll meander, and that will become the pattern. The irregularity of that pattern will become the behavior of the group, because people will get annoyed and they'll communicate. And then they'll curiously wonder about the leader and what is their plan. So I don't take on any extra projects or any extra things that I ain't sure of. I weigh it up against my personal life. I weigh it up against my personal mission, my mantra, my way of thinking, my way of being. And although there's fluidity there with regard to change and outside influences, and they have to be factored in, sprinkled in, and they're erratic at times because you can't control the uncontrollable. You and I certainly have to feel and know that, well, it's very, very important to accept that you can only control what you can control. Now, as a leader who has directed people and been given authority over people for a long time, since my teenage years, in some vein or some aspect of my life, generally it's been pretty good to me. I found it pretty endearing, suitable, and something that I feel I have skills at, I have achieved at, and so on. But when the foundation cracks personally start creeping up, and you realize there's crevices there, hollows in your own life, you have to listen to it. And I'm listening to it right now. And I'm kind of looking vaguely at that blank space, that page in front of me. And I'm scratching my head and I'm wondering, what the heck am I going to do now? And it's not that I didn't plan to come to this point, but it's that suddenly you achieve, or it takes a long time to achieve something. And maybe you don't achieve it. Maybe your plans were skewed, or maybe it's because you just totally got it wrong. And that happens. And that's both professionally and personally, of course. But here's the thing. The golden thing for me is that I've never taken up responsibility of people to direct me without knowing there's a solidity there. There's a certain foundation that will not be breached, will not be unsuitable, will not be able to be adapted, at least. That I can't adapt my life with regard to perhaps personal struggles. So, that has always been my personal rule, which means that I've never taken on things more than I can chew off, that is. And I think that's a good rule. It means I've missed out on opportunities. It means certain opportunity I was given didn't take because I weighed them up against my personal life, or potential uncontrollables outside in my personal life. But I don't regret that. Now, when I speak about myself and actually being lost, yet I'm still being depended upon, what I mean there is that I'm lost in certain aspects of my personal life. Okay? However, the people that are depending on me in my life, personal life, parts of my personal life, and or my professional life, I'm rock solid underneath. Because I've had that rule that I just spoke about there. I've had that forward thinking, potential planning, what if scenario going on when offered certain things. And I go, no, or yes, depending on which I felt, or I weighed things up, bounced things about my professional and personal life. So thankfully, I don't feel as if I've left people down or will lead people astray as such. I think that's crazy to do that. Now, having said all of that, the don't think my personal life will ever be perfect. And to be honest, I don't think it's meant to be. I don't think anybody's is meant to be. I think you're always going to have that wave toward it and within it. Toward it being the uncontrollables, the people behind you or beside you or controlling you or manipulating you, people you don't even realize that's happening. Now more so than ever, you have all these things online with regard to checks and balances, credit cards, banks, lenders. You never meet these people often. Figures on screens. So you don't know, can you be controlled by that? Can you be manipulated by that? Anybody can. People have done, the best of people, smartest of people. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. It's the beauty of life. But being lost and not being able to fill a gap in any aspect of your personal life can still create a domino effect. And I'm very well aware of that. So I'm thinking, how can I become better with helping myself in my certain aspects of my personal life? This lostness. And right now, all I can come up with is nothing. I've looked at every aspect of things, and I cannot find anything that will fill that void, that will grab my hand and choose a pencil or pen and look at that clear white script paper and start penciling away and scribing forward and creating the answer. But I think it's because I'm middle-aged that I'm so calm about it. I think that if it happened, if I felt myself at this point 20 years ago, it would be different. Much more different. Why do I think that, and how do I think that? In Zerbal and Wright's research, there is the dilemma of the wounded healer. They believe that recovery transforms suffering into useful professional insight, and unprocessed wounds interfere with the effect of clinical work. For therapists, and that's generally who they've looked at, but it can be seen for anybody who's giving in a certain way, well, they show greater patience and understanding. And if you're a person that's doing that, you can empathize with this as well. They say that boundary confusion is a major professional concern. But this, of course, can also eke into your personal life, or you can be a carer in your personal life too, and it can show in this way. They say that wounded therapists face increased compassion risks, but that can also happen in your personal life too. From the research, they say that stigma can produce secrecy, shame, and reduced help-seeking behavior, and you could be at that too. So that's why, for me, the research was really important. It got me thinking. But on the other hand, they say that recovery may involve growth relapse or even chronic difficulties. They also say that open dialogue encourages resilient safety and responsible practice. But if it's only professional, that's great, we have the advice from them. But what if it's personal? Because 20 years ago, I would be younger and I would be experiencing things for the first time. I would be experiencing the problems of being an adult and the individualized problems of being a man, being expected to do certain things in your personal life, to have certain things in your personal life. And I admit, I would automatically have judged myself on being a 22-year-old guy, being a 24-year-old guy, being a 26, 28, 30-year-old guy, whatever it was, and say, okay, there's my peers right there. You know, they're 24, they're 28, whatever. And they have these things achieved in their personal life. In the same way, in a similar manner more so, than when you're grading yourself in a professional capacity. in professional capacity, you look at, hey, you come out of college, you get your degree or whatever, and you then get a job, or you get a better job, a better company, then you get a promotion, management, etc. And all these are levels, aren't they? But in the same way with regard to your personal life, certain notches should be on the belt. And you get to a certain point in life, be it in your 20s, be it in your 30s, at that stage, sorry, my collar is uncomfortable. And when that happens, you realize this is what happens with 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds. But then when it doesn't happen, it's only when certain things don't happen in your personal life, and you go through those age groups, 25, 30, and it's like the train has left the station and you're not on it, and everybody else is on it. Everyone else in your age group, every other peer is on that train, and they're waving at you. And when that happens in some aspect of your personal life, it's tough. It's very tough. And as I said, usually it happens in your 20s. But when we slice through it, the different aspects of our personal lives, and we go then to our 30s, and you start thinking, oh, that's going to happen to me. You know, that's a natural progression of things. And then it doesn't. You see that next train leaving the station, and you think, will it ever come back for me? And then when it happens again and again and again, you realize, oops, I'm not even supposed to take a train. Maybe I'm supposed to take a car. Maybe I'm supposed to actually not go in that direction at all. Now I come back to my age group now, in the 40s, and I look at the different facets of my personal life in my own mind's eye, and I start pitting myself against my peers. I've just had a conversation with somebody, much older guy, in his 80s actually, who his sons were the exact same age as me. Well, actually, I'm wrong. One was a year older, one was a year younger. We were small guys. And to be honest, I didn't know them that well when we were growing up, but we were close by. And obviously, our paths more so crossed quite a bit when we were children, and so on up the years. So people wouldn't have known people, and they would have known us and them, and so on and so forth. And all these years later now, I met their dad by chance. Very nice guy, very, very nice guy. And he's after going through a tough time in life, death of a spouse. So briefly, I met his sons, very, very briefly, at the funeral. And it opens up a whole kind of catalogue of questions for me about them. How are they? What are they doing in life? Where are they in their personal lives, naturally enough? And as soon as that happens, a couple of months back, the little seeds are there. And you start, almost like when you're joining the dots, that probably kind of a join the dots type of thing you used to do with your pencils and pens when you were a child. Trying to get the whole picture by joining the dots and making sure you get that whole picture. So in the meantime, I'm like, last couple of months since I briefly saw them, their sons, this man's sons, I thought to myself, God, what is going on in those lives? And what have they achieved professionally? What are they doing now? What are they doing in their personal lives? Just curious. It's human curiosity. It's natural. And as I said, I wouldn't have known these guys too well, but they were certainly same age group, So I met their father very recently before this conversation. It kind of triggered me onto this conversation, thought pattern for myself for this video. And I started telling me they're doing so well, what they're doing in work, And one of them's super, like he's doing really, really well. And married to a particular lady from a particular country, a foreign lady, and a very nice lady, and emphasised how nice she was. And 3 children. And the other guy then is single, doing very, very well, had one career, then moved over into another career because of, just didn't like the first career, it seemed. But very successful, paid very well, I was assured. He's being paid very well. And that's great. Both living away, both in big places, and no worries about the guy who's single, he'll be fine. And he'll meet ladies, all of that. So it's all good, all very productive and positive professional and personal lives, it seems. But there was a thing there where the eldest child of one of them was, I think, 16, 17. I was like, whoa, blown away. I was thinking, what was I doing 16, 17 years ago? And the old saying of you reap what you sow comes to mind. And so when I touch on certain things in my own personal life, within my own mindfulness of it all, I start to not ruminate, but I certainly start to have that self-conversation about things. And as you know, I'm the type who looks at the research and looks at it all, tries to look at it from objective angles. But it's very, very difficult for us all to do that with ourselves, because we're not designed as human beings for that. We're designed as human beings to connect to another. And be it our unwillingness or willingness to look at our own problems or look at our own personal challenges, the little seed is there and it grows. A seed of thought, worry, anxiety, feeling lost. And when you're lost, you don't know where to turn. You don't know where to turn left, right, centre. It's like a maze. And you want somebody, human being, to pull you through the maze, or to just waver you to come toward that direction, because you don't know which direction is best to take. The feeling within me now is that I have to take action. But I don't know which part of action to take, because I've taken action in so many ways and nothing has resulted in a positive outcome. And in fact, none of the ways in which I've taken the action before has given a more positive or more definite outcome than one or the bunch of the others. So there's no kind of direction, positive direction of which to take. There's no sure direction. There's no way of quantifying that if I put X amount of energy in and I try it in this way, I do it in this way, that I'm going to be guaranteed by a certain time frame that there'll be that quantitative measure of improvement. I know that sounds crazy, but that's the way I think professionally. And so therefore, you put that into your personal life in certain ways, and that's how you get results, surely. But personal lives don't always work that way, because personal lives are similar to what I just said with regard to connection. It means you need to connect to me. And when I say that I'm lost, but yet I have others that depend on me. Thankfully, I'm not lost in the way that the people depend on me for. So that foundation is solid. Cool. So now, in order to solve my own personal problems, I look at the solidity of the foundation upon which it is built in order to help others solve their problems through me as the leader in that regard. And I take the sprinkling of the ingredients of that solid platform and I start thinking in that way, how can I now funnel these back into the areas of my life personally? Because when I say quantifiable and I look at measurements and I look at how things can be improved, and when we have personal problems, of course, we want it solved now. Everything is now in this world. It's instantaneous. We press a button, we get medicine. We want something straight away that will help us. And when we have personal difficulties, challenges, and it's so emotive towards ourselves, then there's judgment of thyself, and then there's regret potential, and then there is a clouding of emotion, and then there is the whole lostness, that feeling. And it's paralyzing in some ways, because when you want to take action, it doesn't allow you to grasp the nettle or grasp the control or press a button. Even if the button, whatever machinery is behind it, doesn't work, it doesn't matter. So that feeling of paralysis then has a bundle of energy behind it. And with that energy, it's misdirected and it doesn't know where to go. And then that from the body goes back into the mind, and the mind then ruminates on it. You're back to square one and you're all muddled. But that's where I look back 20 years, 10 years, and I stop and I think. And like being physically lost in a maze, I think to myself, hold on. If I don't know whether to go left, right, straight on, behind, look up, look down, whatever it is, I don't know where to go. I don't maybe have the tools or the people around me to do or to help me to go forward or wherever I want to go with regard to going to a new, better destination, problem-solving solution. I stop and I think, hold on, I've had this feeling before, because everything grains down into a feeling, being lost. So I've had this feeling before. In fact, many times before. And I'm sure you've had it too. And if you have that feeling in any aspect of your life before, the thing is, you're now here in the future. And though you've had it before, and you're lost and you don't know where to go or who to turn to help you, it doesn't really matter, because you got through that. You didn't know, and you don't know right now, what tools you used, or the people maybe weren't around you or aren't around you right now that were around you then that actually pulled you out of lostness. But guess what? You got going again. You found your way. You re-energized. You re-strategized. You got that sprig of inspiration. Became motivated. You turned the key and the engine started purring again, and perhaps better than before. And being that bit older, being in middle age, means that though you can't remember the moments, the experiences, or maybe you can, some of them, and maybe your personal plight, challenge or problem is actually very similar to 10, 20 years ago. Maybe it's happened many, many times. Maybe it's a recurrence of it. That can be good, that can be bad. You can just do the same solution to it. Well, then you're not really lost. But if you can't remember it, then you can certainly take confidence in the fact that you did get through it. You were in a place that felt emotionally being lost, but you overcame it. And if you've done it before, and you have had it before, it means you can do it again. It's one thing in our brains that we can do. We have learned to get through things. And we are certainly stronger than what we actually initially believe we are. Because when we're in the midst of a problem, a personal problem, a challenge, lostness, that's one thing. And I'm thinking out loud now, this piece, for myself. There's even more pressure on the fact that you have to lead people, that people depend on you for certain things. And with that in mind, it means the time and decisions to move forward, decisions to be into the right direction of journey, need to be made. Action needs to happen and occur sooner, more instantaneous. It's not a fact that, oh yeah, here we are and it's this part of the world that we're used to tablets, we're used to medication, we're used to instant gratification. It's not just that. It's more that because other people depend on you being unlost, that therefore you have to create the action that makes the decision that changes that feeling so that you are in the right direction. And the other thing that sits with me right now, on top of that layer of calmness, without any direction, without any atlas, without any GPS in the modern world of where to go or how to make the decision, how to take the action. On top of the layer of calmness, which comes from the experience of knowing how the decision was made in some way in the past to get out of the losses, I know that once I go forward with this in some way, whether I'm even pushed forward, whatever, what will happen is, in the future, be it 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30, if I'm alive, please God, that I mightn't have the memory capacity to go back and think about the personal fix I felt I was in right now. But I certainly will have the knowledge to know that I was old enough to get through it. And that is a part of wisdom, I believe, as you grow older, to have that layer of inner certainty within yourself. And that's like a cushion in your shoe. Makes you feel taller, even if you're in the midst of quicksand. Because you know you can bounce out of it somehow. When you do, you'll hit the ground running. So I don't feel, and this may sound a little bit careless, but I don't feel as if those that depend on me are going to be let down. I feel quite the opposite. I feel that something somewhere, somebody somewhere is going to change. And this is the solution. And I believe now, having thought through it, that the solution is perhaps not coming from me. And maybe the decision is not coming from me. And maybe the action or the frustration or the anxiety, not to take the action, to press the button, to get going in that direction and give it a whirl, is not going to be mine to take. I feel it's going to come externally. And that's the word feel. I mentioned quantifiable. Now I'm talking about feelings. Should I take a decision then on my feelings? It's a personal thing. Yes, because I think feeling at this level has already gone through the multitude of thinking and analysing and strategizing throughout the years that brought me to this point in life in order to go, trust your gut on this. That's the feeling part. So when all else fails, you've got to trust your gut. And I think the older you get, that's another slice of the pie of what people call wisdom. So now I think and I feel, which I believe is giving me this calmness, though I'm in the midst of a big problem in my personal life where I feel lost and where I feel the pressure of having dependence on me. So there's a time pressure as well. But I feel outside influences are going to change things. That may sound absolutely crazy. That may sound, in many ways, against the training that I have had in life, against my educational background, against all the research that I've done, been involved in, read, surmised, and so on. But it's not. Because there's always that percentage of something, be it small or otherwise, where outside influences come to the fore. Before you know it, things change. Now, does that mean that after this video, that if I wait, and the outside influences do not occur, that somehow I'm procrastinating? No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm getting at here. That's not to say that procrastination is possible. It is. It's not to say that I'm not like pushing it under the carpet again and thinking, that's it. No. I'm very aware of this. This is where awareness comes in. This is how I know that I have to keep concurrently aware of things. I have to watch my feelings on this. If they titrate up or down, forward or back, I have to watch it from all directions. I have to bring that deep feeling of the personal problem to my forebrain, to my thinking. And I feel with this as well that could be a point if the outside influences don't come about and change things, or force myself to make a decision, force myself to go on a certain path, a direction to solve the issue, or go some way to certainly direct myself, take control again. Well, then I feel that it certainly can be overtaken in a way that's going to be, you missed the boat, baby. You missed the train, or good. There ain't no more stations. You cannot hop in your car, get in front of the train on the tracks, take a motorway, take a shortcut, get out in front of it. Because wiser people than me have traveled the world and have gone through many lifetimes over centuries and millennia. And they have written. And that wisdom, that education has seeped through to teachers, leaders, those that have been in touch with me, my mentors, my choice of influence. And it has been said in more ways than one, I'm sure, that time and tide waits for no man. And it is very true. So I would be extremely arrogant to try and break that rule. However, there is also the fact that this too shall pass. So one must be aware that the connection of human beings must be trusted upon, and that outside influence can change things just like that.
Thanks for watching. Please like this video. If you subscribe, comment to say that you have, and we'll look after you.